I'm a morning person, and I like to get as many steps as I can in early in the morning.
I live about 1.5 miles from my office, and pretty much every day, I hike from my house to my office.
I'm trying to get 40,000 average steps a day. It's around 20 miles.
I can readily admit that, competition is something I've never really shied away from.
It's a exercise, what I call it a gizmo. It basically measures your steps, and there you go. There's my steps so far today, 16, 7, 16. It keeps track of all of your activity that's walking or running, and it records that information. You'll find the information goes automatically by Bluetooth to your computer and goes onto the web. And the goal is to try to beat other people.
We do have a natural competitive streak. What a product can do is it can help bring that to the fore by saying, hey, here's an opportunity. Here are other people like you who are exercising, and say, all right, here's how they're doing. How do you stack up?
Sometimes, when I see people who are 1,000 steps, 500 steps, 2,000 steps, I think that's only like a half a mile. I live in D.C. There's always things to go and walk around and look at. I check regularly. How many times a day? Probably a dozen.
9th place. I am only 100 steps behind the next guy.
Well, I'm looking at the leaders and where they are.
The craziest thing is basically staying up right until the last minute at 12 o'clock, and I'm watching the time and watching the steps and running faster and faster to get more steps in.
When I first got my Fitbit back in 2010, I weighed about 350 pounds. Since that time, I've lost 125 pounds. If I have an off week or if I get sick or something happens and my step count goes down, sometimes people will message me and say, hey, are you okay? These people that I don't know, people that I've never met. And so I feel like I owe it to people to keep up the work.